Okay, time to get to some artifacts. And as I was saying in a previous video, these are Guillermo's rocks. And some of it is debitage, some of it is artifacts as far as complete and broken artifacts. He also asked me to try to identify some of these stones. This is just high quality raw chert. This stuff here I think is a silicified sandstone. It's high quality, easy to knap. The texture is similar to Obsidian or Dacite, but it's a chert. But it looks like silicified sandstone to me. After knapping some silicified sandstone, that's what this feels like to me. Okay. I have, in the time that I've gotten this box of artifacts, and now I have knapped some silicified sandstone. Okay. So that would be my guess on those. Let's see, what do we have here? We've got like thumb scrapers and stuff. This may take a while, but it shouldn't take too long. The box isn't that large. Alright, so these could be various things. You know, this could be a what do you call it? I forgot already. An adze tip, broken. It looks like high quality chert by the way that it broke right there. It's a clean break. If it's a tough chert, these breaks won't be that clean. Let me think about that. I got to be very careful about how I answer this. Tough cherts do break off clean, but they don't break off in the same way. There's sometimes with a tough chert, it's a little bit more skewed. I don't know. This one, look how straight across that is. It's just a clean break. That's what I mean by clean. It's just very, very straight. All right. So yeah, this beveled edge here, it's obviously worked. And there's no, looks like there's no chipping going this way. So if it was a scraper, it was scraping something pretty easy to scrape. And it does not look like it's a scraper per se because it's all lumpy. Scrapers are usually nice and smooth, or they don't scrape very well. So this was just a way to resharpen this just quickly. It looks like just quick pressure or percussion flakes, might even be hammerstone. And it could be either a tool or a preform. What happens with a preform is you strike down with a hammerstone or a billet or something just to get that edge to be more knappable going this way to thin the base. Could have been a pretty long, relatively long point that just needed the base thinned down, so you bevel it first and then you start striking in this direction. So if it's a tool, it's an unusual tool to me. If it's a preform, the reason why it's got a bevel is so you can strike in the other direction and, you know, thin it down. Now it's got a snap in it, which means it's probably snap and half-ish type chert. It might even be heat treated. So in the process of knapping it downward like this to create the bevel, it could have snapped the tip off if it's a snap and half-ish type chert. Okay. This is knapped all the way around. It's hard to tell if these are preforms or scrapers. Scrapers with really, really bad edges, they don't make good tools. Now, this type of edge is okay for sawing Just hold it like this and try to saw. What would you saw that would be really, really small like this? Well, something really small. If I was going to saw something big, I would use a big biface like this and then saw it like that with something this big. Something this small indicates either you're trying to cut a groove into something or it's something that's very small. Yeah, you can cut a groove into something with this. If you want to score a bone or whatever, you can score it easily with this. Now, if you want to make needles or something out of bone, you know, pretend this is the bone. You scrape and keep scraping and keep scraping until you scrape a long groove into it, and then you move it over a little bit. Scrape, scrape, scrape until you have a long groove, and then you try to snap the bone along these grooves, and you're left with the one in that space in the middle that becomes the needle. Let's see. I don't have time to be demonstrating these. I wish I had time to demonstrate how to carve bone. But anyway, a lot of it involves grinding. So, and the same with these. This type of thing, I wouldn't use these for adze blades. When they have a bevel like that, it's easiest just to use them as a little scoring tool. To haft this into something to use as an adze doesn't look correct. First of all, there's no damage on this end. If it's hafted like an adze, it's usually backed up against some wood on the handle, and there's some damage, or there's intentional dulling back here, so this won't get damaged. But with a scraper, if it is a scraper, I would tend to think that it would be a lot more regular in order to be effective. This is crude, so it appears to be a scoring tool to score a line, a groove in something. And one of the most useful things to put grooves into is bone, so that you can snap off a part of the bone to make a needle, for example. Sometimes you want to score an antler in such a way that you can snap off a tool tip from a section of antler. So these look like sawing tools and not scraping or adze tools. These look like sawing tools, or this also could pass for a preform. Okay, but yeah, it's been a while, or that's been a while. Let me think here. It's taken me a while to figure out what these could be. It's taken me years, and I keep looking at them back and forth, putting them away, taking them out, putting them away, taking them out. These, I'm going to place the likelihood on not scrapers, sawing or grooving type tools, where you can hold it like this and put a groove into something. Now, why can't you put a groove into something with a bifacial edge? Because it's easier to sharpen a beveled edge. It's just easier. You can strike downward. You don't even need Flintknapping skills to strike downward and create a bevel. You do need Flintknapping skills to create a lenticular or bifacial edge. This requires Flintknapping skills. This does not. Now, what about the original shape? Doesn't it require a lot of Flintknapping skills to get that shape? Yes, it does. But the napper can just make a form and hand it off to someone, and someone else can be resharpening it without skill. As an example. Now, could these be made by very skilled nappers and then just got lazy and napped this with something else in a bevel, with a bevel? Yeah. Instead of some other way of sharpening it. This looks like percussion sharpening because there's few flakes. If there was a bunch of flakes, it would look more like pressure flaking. But the fewer the flakes, the more percussion, the more like percussion it looks. Okay. The fewer the flakes, the more inclined I am to say percussion. Because we can kind of narrow it down. We don't know exactly for sure what tools, but we can narrow it down to get kind of close. These are two artifacts. Now these do look like scrapers to me, because they're made very specifically on flakes that have nice smooth original flake scars on one side and pretty crude knapping on the other. These also are easy to knap with percussion, but if you sometimes see very fine flaking, then it's also a possibility that they could be developed with pressure. And you see these edges are more refined than the ones that I just put down there. These edges are not as refined as these edges. These edges look more useful for actual scraping. They are more refined. Even though there are some irregularities, they probably did not use the irregular areas. After some of this edge chipped off, they would switch it around, and some edge, would scrape, and then oops, some of it would break off, and they'd turn it, and they scrape, it'd break off, and they turn it. So this looks like it's been turned all the way around and either discarded because it was starting to get too small, or it just has not been resharpened. Resharpening just will regularize and make even the edge, make the edge evenly rounded and nice and consistent. This one looks a little bit like it's in better shape, but still, you're scraping with it and a piece chips off, you just change the rotation of it and continue scraping, and a piece chips off, you change the rotation, or you rotate it to change the position of the scraping edge and continue to scrape. Now, what would you scrape with this? Mainly, it looks like they were used to scrape hides, scrape flesh off of hides. As long as you got it strung up or on the ground, staked on the ground, you can scrape flesh off hides with these. Yep, I have tried it. It's really messy though. So with big hides, it's very messy. With something this small, it gets all gummed up almost immediately. So I think these were probably used for smaller hides and even bird hides that are very delicate. Okay, something small. The larger hides probably were scraped with larger tools, like large bone tools. I've scraped hides before, and sometimes there's lots of membrane, and sometimes the membrane is swollen, especially if you let it get kind of rotted before you scrape it, slightly rotten to loosen it up a little bit. There's a period in there between perfectly fresh and nasty. In between there's a stage where the flesh is easier to scrape off. Okay, it has to be done in cool weather. In that case, warm weather, you should just scrape it off immediately, no matter how gooey, how strong the membrane is attached to the flesh, to the skin. You need to do it right away. But in cooler weather, you can let it sit, or even put it in water and let it soak. That way it's easier. But like I said, a larger hide with something this small is difficult. So I think these were used on smaller hides, maybe even rabbit and that kind of thing. Although there's usually not much membrane and stuff on rabbit. It could be used to dry scrape as well, to thin down hides that are thick in certain areas. Thin down the hide so you can stretch it out evenly and get it nice and soft. Alright, so these look like debitage. Yeah, some of this looks like Owl Creek. Owl Creek is a very small area in central Texas, but I think a lot of stone was gathered from that area, and I think maybe in surrounding areas there's a lot of this material. This also looks like the silicified sandstone, but I don't know for sure. This one looks like Owl Creek more than the silicified sandstone, because I don't see any sparklies, any kind of sparkly minerals in this. So even though it may look similar to the sandstone, I don't think this is a sandstone. I think it's a chert. It's just a regular chert and not a silicified sandstone. All right. Yeah, this is just typical gravel chert, central Texas. Why would they test these? Just to make scrapers out of them. See if they can crack them in half. If you can crack them in half and get an original flake scar that looks like this, you can crack them in half and then have one side look kind of bulgy like this. You use the bulgy side. So it looks like they were trying to crack this in half and didn't, or weren't able to. Okay. So yeah, flakes in various stages of being modified. Various types of stones. Here's a beveled edge on there, so yeah, this looks like it's done completely with percussion and nothing else. That would be my guess. And I don't know what tool, because it could be flaked with antler or stone, hammerstone or antler, obviously. I don't know which one was used on this. Maybe both. But as you can see, there isn't much care taken in evening out that edge. So it didn't need to be nice and even. With the scrapers, if you remember, the edges are very even, and there's a different form to the scraper entirely. Now, that assumes that I am classifying the scrapers correctly, but to me, I don't see what else this could be. This could be a saw, but this would work better as a saw because of the longer area back here. It's easier to hold. For sawing, it's not going to do this thing on you. It's not going to twist like this. This one looks like it's better for scoring. And hafting, you can haft this as well, and there might be some that are hafted. Right? Now, I've tried hafting stones like this, and immediately, if there's any hard use, like if you really need to dig out a big root or something, and you glue this onto a stick, and you wrap it a lot, within 2 minutes, that's going to be snapped and pop out. Doesn't matter how strong of a haft you've got. If you're really tearing into something, that's going to just pop right out. 2 reasons. Natural glue is not that good, and this is a contracting stem. Contracting in both ways. That's the worst thing you could possibly haft. The best is expanding. And just the opposite. Getting fatter in both directions. That way it doesn't pop out. Now, is there a lot of stuff that's hafted this way for chopping through roots and stuff? No, most of the stuff hafted this way is for projectiles, to resist impact. Now, there are projectile points with contracting stems. Yes. Why? Because they're easy to make. Contracting stems are easier to make. That's the only reason I can think of for making a projectile point with a contracting stem. To me, it has no other big advantage other than ease of construction. A contracting stem, in my opinion, has no advantage in hafting other than being easy. It's a pain in the butt to haft it as far as using enough glue, and the wrapping doesn't hold it in very well. It just kind of helps the glue. And the wrapping will help down below if it hits. But something like this, where it looks like it's just a scraper, and it must be scraping something easy to scrape, if it is a scraper. and it must be something that doesn't that isn't affected by a really wonky edge. No, I can't think of anything that's easy and something that can be sloppy. Easy to scrape, but sloppy in appearance is what this would be used for. I can't think of what that would be. I've tried and tried and tried. I don't know what could be scraped sloppily and easily. Most things that need to be scraped are difficult to scrape, and most things, in fact, I think all things that need to be scraped very carefully, cleanly, smoothly, and cosmetically nice. This is not going to produce a nice cosmetic effect on anything scraped. So I think it's a saw. To saw in this direction to create a groove in something. And if you sharpen it with hammerstone or antler, it might just be something as simple as a cord cutter. You know, you stretch it, you tie the cord somewhere, you stretch it out, and then cut it. I don't know. It looks like the edge is used in this way and not as a scraper or an adze. Okay, it's difficult to keep in the haft because it breaks out within 2 minutes. I've tried using these in a haft, and I still cannot figure out any use for something easy to scrape that doesn't require a nice smooth surface after you've finished. I can't think of anything. It's, even after years and years of looking at it, I can't think of anything. All right. This is just simple biface with a snap. It's like just a difficult piece of chert to work, and it just has a snap in it, and it's discarded because it's not big enough for what they wanted. Yeah, these are just debitage testing flakes, I think, just for testing. Some of these are in the process, or were in the process of being napped into scrapers or something, and they didn't make the cut, so to speak. All right, play on words there, yeah. But yeah, this is all percussion work, and I think the desired goal was a scraper and not an arrowhead. An arrowhead, I would think, in my opinion again, would be made of something like this, a flat flake instead of a chunker like this. Okay, so chunkers usually stay chunkers like this, and if you wanted a flat arrowhead, you would start with a flat flake like this. Just start with a flat flake. If you wanted a scraper, you would start with a chunker piece like this. You would not want to make an arrowhead out of this. It just takes too much time, it ruins your tools, and it's really, really difficult. Okay. Now I've got the book down here just in case I need to look something up. Okay, and everyone asks, what is that book? What is the book? What is it? This is it. This is the book. I might not even refer to it. Okay. Now I could go and into these and try to identify all these stones as far as the type of stone and what is heat treated and what is not, but I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. Some of these appear to be heat treated, but I doubt that very much of this is heat treated. I doubt it. It all looks like just test debitage, just testing to see if it is nappable. That's all it is. This looks like high quality stone, and it was just tested to see if it was nappable, and they probably used the good pieces that came off of this one. This looks like raw, high quality raw, and they just left these little chunkers behind. Yeah. These are all waste. It looks like they may have wanted to make something out of it, but I don't see any use where, or I don't see it fully developed as far as a bunch of edges. It may have been used to cut something, but there's better flakes for cutting than this. So it's just waste. It's just test pieces. A test piece that broke, one of those snap in half type test pieces. Some of these saws that I was talking about just a few minutes ago, where you would cut a groove into something, they may be snapped in half bifaces that got converted into those little saw type things, and that's why it looks skillfully napped on this side but crudely napped on the bevel. Okay, but that looks like a test piece that broke in half during construction, and it was probably a larger biface. Yeah, test pieces and chunks just knocked off of nodules. Yeah, test piece. A lot of times these flakes are not flakes. This is a core where it looks like they were trying to thin this down, but it just was too small. Yeah, they hit on this side just to get some flakes off, but it ended up being too small or something. That's my guess. This could have been used as a nice scraper, but it wasn't because of Cortex, I bet. Otherwise, it probably would have been used as a scraper with a rounded outside. Test flake that was not used. It might have been kept for later. But if it's not long enough for the arrowhead they want, they won't use it. This looks like a heat treat, but it just might be what they call desert polish. It does not look like high quality stuff, but it could be. I'm not going to chip into all these to check them. Now these two come from the same type of rock. Yeah. It's a gravel type chert, high grade. These are high grade pieces, but they are obviously too small to use for whatever. Otherwise, they would have been used. They're nice, nice quality stones. Looks like if it has sparkles in it, I classify it as silicified sandstone. If it doesn't, it's a chert. These are just gravel cherts. You find them in streams and rivers. I would classify all of this as gravel chert from small nodules. Some high quality stuff like this. Some heat treatable, like this stuff can be heat treated, but it works well raw as well. So you can work them in any way you want. This works well heat treated, but it does not look heat treated. These just look like test flakes from gravel, river gravel. All of these look like test flakes. You just crack open one of the pieces of river gravel and see what you got. And that's it. If you can get something out of it, cool. Like if someone was probably trying to get something out of it and napped it a lot, but either napped it too much or it was just too small to begin with. But this one has a lot of napping on it. So I would think that they were trying to make something out of it, but it just got too small. Yeah, some of this is very high quality stuff, but it just doesn't meet the size requirements. Yeah, I think they just discard this kind of stuff because it does not meet the size requirements. And I want to know where to get this white chert from. I suppose there's many different areas where you can get white chert, but for some reason they ended up finding the white chert, and it seems to be in a lot of sites. When you look at artifacts, there's usually white chert within the site. Where do they get it? I don't know. It seems like it'd be everywhere, but I can't find any. And I know some people that do have white chert on their property, so I mean it does exist. It's just very specific locations that require, you know, excellent knowledge of the landscape. And sometimes you would probably have to walk for days to get it. It's not everywhere. Most chert looks like this stuff here in Texas. It's just various consistencies, grayish, tannish, maybe tan if you're lucky, but mostly gray and pretty nasty. This one though looks like it's high quality stuff, just not large enough to meet the size requirements. And some of it looks like a heat treat, but it's raw. And I think this kind of stuff falls in that category that looks heat treated, but it's actually raw. Yeah, just test flakes. And a lot of this is high quality raw. So they must have used the larger pieces for projectile points or tools. Now some might say, well, wait, go back to that one. Is this a flute flake? Do you think it might be a flute flake for a flute on a Clovis? I don't think so. You can see the little platform on there. It's a very nice little flake. It's typical of flakes you remove from the side, the base, or from a core, just testing out the core. It does look like a flake removed from a biface. But you never know. This could be removed from chunks this small. You know what I mean? If you want to make a scraper, just, you know, keep hitting it in the right ways. You're going to remove some of these from it as an example. But yeah, it could be a biface flake from a very nice biface, big biface, or a small one. There's endless possibilities of where they could have come from. You can't narrow it down to a single little thing unless you've got the actual biface it came off of. Then you can narrow it down. If you can retrofit, and if it fits into or fits onto a biface, then that's it. Otherwise, you have no idea. Hematite, right? Very polished. But I think they find these already polished in the rivers, because I've tried scraping these so I can get pigment from them, and I can't do it. I cannot get pigment from these. What happens is this hematite ends up just smearing onto the other stone, and there's no particles. It's just a smear. I don't want to ruin this, but I'll show you. What can I use that's not going to get ruined? I don't care if it gets ruined. There's nothing. Let's see. It'll smear, but I can't get any pigment. I've tried and tried and tried. Unless you just sit there and scrape forever. But this pigment is so fine, it takes forever to get enough to do anything with. I suppose if it starts off as a really big piece and you sit there for a really long time, you can get a pigment. It does come off. I mean, they probably did use it for that, if you know, but it takes forever. That's my experience with the hematite. It just takes forever to get the pigment from it, if that's what they use it for, which they probably did. but it could have used it for something else. You know, they could just find it, and since it's heavy, it's like a weird thing. It's heavy because it has a lot of iron oxide in it, and it may just be a charm of some sort. Okay. All right, these are artifacts that are well chipped, but they look like preforms to me and not finished pieces. Okay. Why do they look like preforms and not finished pieces? Because they're still kind of thick. Points of this size a lot of times are thinner. Now, I don't know. This might be a finished piece. What type of point? I don't like going into what type of points they might have been. It looks like these are similar because the edge treatment looks similar. So these might be the same type, and this might be a preform for that type. Or they might be from completely different time periods and not related to each other whatsoever. All right, so we don't know. This may be a complete point with an impact fracture, right? Or it could be an incomplete point picked up by some other culture and stuck on a projectile just as is and then damaged. So it was not made by the particular culture that damaged it. That's a possibility. How much of a possibility? I don't know. As you can see, if this is a finished piece with impact damage, it's got serrations on one side but not the other. Why would they do that? I don't know. It's got something that looks like it might be a broken ear, but it's very thin. That does look like a broken ear. Why would they make the ears so thin but not sharp? No points. I have no idea. Why didn't they make them thicker so that it would resist being pulled out? Because that's what it would do. If you made these thicker, the point would stay in the wound better than having it sharp. I have no idea why they made them thin and sharp as far as edge sharpness, not pointy sharpness. They made them edge sharp. Okay, why? I have no idea. I do not know. And I don't know why they would do one side with serrations and the other side without. And why it's beveled so much. Why would they have a bevel here and then nice and non-beveled there? Why can't they do this edge all the way around? Why do they have to be sloppy there on a finished piece when they weren't sloppy here? They were very careful here and they're very careful there, but for some reason this is not careful on that side. Why would they do that? It's like what I said before. It's stupid knapping. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why they would do that. It does look like an impact fracture, but you can also get that fracture by stepping on it. Yeah. You know, if it's up here, if it's up like this and you step on it from here, it bends in this way and it can force a flake that way. You know, it can bend this way, and that bending can compress this side here and pop a flake out, and it may not be an impact fracture. So it may be something not finished yet but just stepped on or something like that. This does look like more of a finished piece because there's flaking all the way around on both sides. Yeah. Now, what is it if it's a finished piece? You just look in here until you find something that it might be. And also keep in mind that it's probably not paleo. Okay, paleo is a very narrow time period in comparison to the archaic. You also have to look at the area where it might have been found. I don't know where it was found. It's not an it's not a Catan, because these are convex bases and this is concave. I think there might be some of those in here, if I remember right. It might also be resharpened from some other point type that has barbs. Yeah, I was going to say Abasolo on the other one. So I would just look through here until I found or find something that might match, and not paleo. It might be, you think it might be a St. Mary's Hall or a Barber or something because of the type parallel flaking. It looks like it's too small overall. I would say no. One bad thing about this book is it does not show side profiles. It doesn't show the side, so you can't make any comparisons that way. A lot of these have thick bases, like that one. I think the early stemmed lancelet has a very thick base, I think, as an example. So we need to see the side view. Alright, so concave bases that are unnotched and have rounded corners. I think I've looked for these before and was not able to make a good determination of what they are. And the paleo stuff is the last thing I would consider any of these pieces being, because like I said, paleo is a small time period compared to all the other time periods. And this one doesn't have any dulling. Just another indication of earlier points is the dulling, but it's not necessarily true. Some later archaic points are also dulled. Alright, so I'm just going to look through here really fast. Is this, you think it might be a Kinney? Well, Kinneys don't seem to be persnicketedly flaked. This one is persnicketedly flaked. See that? It's got a lot of flaking on it. These don't have a whole lot of flaking. Looks like just a bunch of bold flakes. And yeah, a lot of people will just go through here and, oh, it could be that. Oh, it could be that. Oh, it could be that. Oh, no, wait a second. It might be that. Yeah. Think it might be a paisano. Maybe. But we have no way of knowing because the ears are broken off. This might have had sharp, pointy ears. Pointy and not rounded. Or some of these paisanos have rounded, but there's a constriction usually just above the ears. So I see no constriction just above the ears, so that's not going to be it. Now there's St. Mary's Hall. These are found only in a small area, and the sides are parallel down near the base. This does not have parallel sides. You know, it does not have parallel sides. It's quickly contracting. So I would not put it in that category, and I would not put it in the San Patrice category. Scott's Bluff, the bases on Scott's Bluff would be a lot more carefully flaked than this. This has some thinning flakes, but those are just typical thinning flakes. Now, Tortugas is a good possibility. This is middle to late archaic. All right, there's lots of flaking. There's some thinning from the base. See those bunch of thinning flakes, which matches that. So this is a good candidate for this. All right, but these usually have alternately beveled edges, and this one does not have alternately beveled edges. Okay, so it's a good candidate at first until you look at it. Says triangular point has a straight to concave base and alternately beveled edges. It is often thick and crudely flaked in the midsection and well thinned basally. So this is carefully flaked everywhere. So it's probably not one of those, although there could have been a skillful napper in this group that made these. So what is it? I haven't answered the question, what is it? Well, that's why Guillermo sent it to me, so I could maybe shed some light on what it is. But after I don't know how many years, I don't know what it is. I don't know what that is. A Tortugas would be the closest thing that I've seen just skimming through the book just now. But it's not thick. So it's just a triangular, archaic triangular, I would call it. Yeah, these are just archaic triangulars. And they might not be the same culture. And they could be separated by many years in time. Doesn't give you any closure, but like I said, I can't figure what these things are. I can't figure out what these things are. There's not enough context. There are too many different possibilities, too many sites that have not been excavated that might yield some insights into what those are. These do look like finished points. Yeah. What did I say these were? Abyssal? Let's see. Or Desmuke? Desmuke, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't gone through and done all the research on what these could be and labeling each one. This one has alternately beveled edges, but a lot of cultures copied each other. So, you know, it's not just one type that had alternately beveled edges. How do you haft these? That's a good question. And if you look at the edges, some of them are nice and sharp and thin, and you can see that they were probably finished and has impact fracture. That's a classic impact fracture. The contracting stem like this is one of the hardest to haft, but if it's only going to be a one-shot deal, it doesn't matter if it breaks out of the haft, if it's just a one-shot deal. Okay, a lot of these probably one-shot deals, and they're resharpened if possible, and not resharpened if not possible. This edge is not quite as well developed as this. They're probably the same point type, but they have different edge treatments. The one on the right is thick and stupid, and the one on the left is thin and smart. But they look like the same point type. Okay, could be that the stone that this is made out of is harder to knap. Could be. This looks like an impact fracture there, and this looks like a heat pop. So this may be a heat treated piece. And as you can see, they did not care about step fracturing. and that pop could be after the fact that was already made and impact fractured, or it could be before. There's no way of knowing. I can't shed any light on whether that's before or after final completion of the point. I can't tell you. Now, what is this of this size? What is this doing in the archaic stuff? Well, it could have been mixed in from a later time period, or a child was making it, a miniature version of the bigger piece, or an inexperienced napper was just making a smaller version of the finished piece, or it's a drill of some sort, or it's just another doodle. For no reason, just make one. It could be a broken off tip that is reworked. It could be an actual point that was hafted, maybe in an emergency situation. Yeah, you don't have one of these, but I do have a little flake. Let's just put a little bitty one on there. They've got the same base thickness, so it fits in the same haft. If you pre-manufactured the foreshafts, it'll fit in the same foreshaft, right? It's just not that big. All you need, if all you need is something to pierce the hide, you can use it. What do I think this is? Yeah, that's been the puzzle after all these years. I don't know. If it was really, really sharp, it may be just a little tattooing tool, but I would tend to use a different shape of tool entirely and not spend so much time trying to make a triangle out of it. I would just use a flake that's got a little piece sticking out if I wanted to use it for tattooing or whatever. This looks like an intentionally napped point, projectile point. From what time period, I don't know. But to me, that looks like an intentionally napped projectile point. And who knows, it could have been hafted the other way around and called a blunt or whatever. You never know. And can you use something that small on an atlatl dart point or atlatl dart foreshaft? This is that atlatl dart foreshaft. This is obviously much too big, but if you can narrow down the atlatl dart foreshaft to that size and it will fit. Yeah. So I think these are probably Abasolo. Let's see. Or a smaller version. There's Abasolo and there's a smaller. Hold on. Catan. Alright, let's see. Where is the Catan? See, the Abasolo is a larger version of the Catan. It's similar to Catan but larger in size. So let's look at the Catan. Right there. These all look like Catan points from South Texas. Same with this one. See that? And these are 81,000. About 81,000, so that's like transitional, archaic, or no, late prehistoric, about 81,000. So this is definitely in the same era as arrows, but these all look like atlatl dart points to me. Yeah. They're found across the border in Mexico as well. Let's see. Detailed studies of Webb County lithics reflect a high percentage of impact fractures on Catan points. So these are all probably Catan points. Atlatl dart points. Even though they're from 81,000. I think the bow was introduced widely after AD 400, so it's well within the bow and arrow time period, but I don't think that these were arrow points because of the thickness. Arrow foreshafts of most of these areas, they look like this, that size. This is just too thick for an arrow point, but it'll definitely fit into an little dart foreshaft. All right, so Catan points. Made of gravel. These all look like they're made of gravel and not from chert that you can only find in very specific locations in big nodules. These look like they're made from gravels. Now, could some of the gravels that I was looking at earlier be precursors to Catan points? Yes, but why they did not make this into a Catan point, I don't know. It can be made into a Catan point, especially of this little size. Yeah, you can make a Catan point of this size out of this, but they didn't. So this debitage might not be from a Catan site. Or if it was, they were making bigger Catans and not smaller Catans. Or they just didn't want to mess with that particular piece because it was too turtlebackish. Maybe. Many possibilities. Some of these, I've looked at these and looked at these over and over and over. Why they didn't finish them, I don't know. This one looks like it was broken in construction, so that's not too difficult to determine. It is really curved though also, so it's not that useful. It does look like it was slightly modified and the tip broke off and they said, nah. But these things, I guess there's really not much of a mystery. It's just inexperienced nappers trying to thin them down. There was a big old hit right there to get rid of that turtleback and it didn't work, so that's it. Yeah. Inexperienced napper trying to whittle it down. And these look like just broken in construction or misshapen in construction, so they just discarded them. Even although I could make a Catan point out of that if I wanted to. But if you're only using hammerstone or only direct percussion, it's difficult to get these turtlebacks out without these big scoop outs. You can get them off and get them flattened, but if you end up scooping too much of it out, it ends up ruining the whole thing. Yeah, some of these, it looks like it's worked all the way around, so it could be a tool of some sort. But flakes work much better than these napped pieces. So I think it was just napped all the way around, and it was determined that too much work to finish out, so it was discarded or saved for later. Endless possibilities on why these would be abandoned. Could be time constraints. It could be they found some material that was better in the, after a few minutes. These could all be just tests to see if they will nap at the quarry. They could have been reworked nodules and stuff that were already in the campsite, but discarded for maybe someone else who was more skillful to work on later. All kinds of possibilities. Anything you can come up with could be an answer as far as that goes. Yeah. Hopefully I'm not breathing too much into the microphone on this. Yeah, these are tests to see what's in there. Yeah, that's just an inconsequential, broken up piece. I don't see where I don't see why they would want to use this unless it might be used as a pigment. Now, this is Novaculite, which is famous for being a good grinding stone. So I might be able to get, a nice powder off of this because, like I said, Novaculite's good for grinding. That's the only thing I could think of for this. Maybe it was used for a pigment, but I don't see any grinding on it, so it was just probably broken up to see if it worked, and it looks like it didn't. This is a chert, looks like Owl Creek. It looks like it has too many defects, so it wasn't used. This is just a gravel that this may have been broken on purpose, or it might be broken by nature. Impossible to tell. This is high quality chert, black or dark gray chert. Obviously, it was tested to see how good it was, but when it's discarded like this, my first instinct is to say that it was discarded because it did not meet the size requirements. Yeah. This one was discarded because it was too nasty, it looks like. Some stones just don't knap well. This one does look like it has some wear on it, like they were grinding on it or using it to extract some pigment. This one is easier to grind than that hematite. This is kind of heavy also. This one is easier to grind down, so I would say this is a pigment stone. It's much easier to grind. So yeah, pigment stone. Yeah, just regular flakes. Looks like Tecovas. It reminds me of Tecovas jasper on some of these. A lot of these are jaspers. This is a jasper. This is a jasper. That's not. I don't know what that is. This is a chert. Crude chert. This is a high quality raw chert. This is a high quality raw chert. This is a poor quality jasper, high quality raw chert. This one is just a quartzite. Colorful, but it's just a quartzite. I don't know, this is an iron oxide sandstone, looks like. A sandstone with a lot of iron oxide in it. And these are just incidental chunks. I see a lot of this kind of stone around El Paso and far west Texas. So it could be just stuff that ended up in the campsite because it's just everywhere. I'm getting some of these mixed up here. All right. I know I'm not being that gentle with these, but these are tough. Most of this stuff looks like raw cherts, not heat treats, and just gravel stuff, and just preforms or broken in manufacturer trying to make Catan points. Yeah. Trying to make Catan points and failing. Although that one got pretty close. I don't see why they did not finish that one out. They could have finished that one out. It's a high quality raw, except for that one area. How do I know it's a high quality raw? Because of the way that the flakes are traveling on it. Now some of these have little shoulders, and those are Let me think. I saw one in here that had little shoulders on them. Dismute. See, and this is from the same basic area that the Catan is from. Shoulder. But it looks like it was not finished. These shoulders look like they're from the resharpening, but I'm talking about from the bottom. So you can see it goes out intentionally like a shoulder at the bottom. See that right there? That's not from resharpening. This is from resharpening. Let's see. The lateral edges are often alternately beveled and may be slightly serrated. Impact fractures are common. Yada yada yada. These are from the late Archaic, so similar in time period to the Catan. All right, Catan is very late. Let's see. Yeah, 81,000. Yeah, just wanted to make sure. These are earlier if they're, what did I say? Not Catan. Dismuke. If they are Dismuke, they're earlier time period. And what kind of knapping is this? Opportunistic and very direct percussion knapping and stupid knapping. Yeah. But you don't get good until you're stupid at first. Okay? If you don't have this kind of stuff when you first start, you're not doing it like they used to do it. Yeah, just broken in manufacture. Yeah, a lot of these are just tests and broken in manufacture. Yeah, all Catan or Dismuke or Abasolo attempts of different gravels. Now this is an interesting quartzite. See the sparkles? Purple quartzite. So they tried to use everything. And the gravel cherts are a mix of various cherts and various quartzites. Some are high quality like this one. Some are not easy to knap like this one. You can tell because of all the step fracturing and weird flaking going on. This one you can see that there are long flakes on this one, so it's higher quality. Usually that's what that means. It could also mean a higher level of skill, but usually it looks like it's just a higher quality material, in my opinion. And most of it done with percussion. Direct percussion. Maybe indirect percussion? Maybe. But I don't think indirect percussion was used all that much. Nope. Why? Because you can easily do it with direct percussion. You know, you use indirect percussion for the difficult stuff, and it's good for YouTube videos because everyone wants to see the difficult stuff done. But if you do the easy stuff like this, you only need direct percussion. You don't need indirect. This looks like all direct percussion, including the bevel on the edge. And I think that bevel was for creating grooves, sawing this way. Although it can be hafted, the hafting, like I said, is not very strong no matter what you do. It's not strong at all. And if you're really banging on something, that'll pop right out. So it's got to be something easily scraped. Why they would use stone for something easily scraped, I have no idea, when they could use bone, or they can even use a sharpened piece of wood. Unless it's, you know, it's wet and you need something that's not affected by moisture. Yeah, it makes sense to use a piece of stone. But it makes the most sense to use stone on something like bone that cannot be carved or whatever with anything else. And why is this so well napped around the other sides but not there? Because it could be just something broken in manufacture and picked up by somebody and used, one of these things is broken in manufacture, and I just pick it up and start knocking off an edge to make it beveled. And it looks, like this one here. I can easily convert this broken in manufacture thing into this. This on the right can become this on the left with just 5 seconds of direct percussion. Just, and it'll become this. Okay, so that's what I think they were doing. Converting these into these. Yeah, Catan, and this might be heat treat. Some of these might be heat treat. This one does look like an adze blade, but it's so dull that I don't see any use for it. And it's sharp back here. Unless this was the business end, and that dull part is just to be dull, and that's actually the useful part. I don't know. These are a mystery to me because I don't make them this way. I make them so that they're sharper. It does feel like it's ground down right here, though. It is ground down, like it's been used a lot or intentionally ground down. Now you can haft it. It just does work this way as an adze blade, and there might be a little wear on there, but I would make this much better. Although that chip could be from use wear. It's hafted this way, and this is the business end. That would make more sense than to have this as the business end. Okay. Yeah, just gravel chert broken in construction, gravel chert broken in construction. This is high grade. I've seen this stuff and worked this stuff before. It's high grade raw. This just didn't meet the size requirements, or because it broke off right there. This is very, very difficult to work, and there's a defect in the stone, so it snapped at the defect. Yeah, direct percussion. It looks like it's all got deep scoop out, so that looks like direct percussion. Yep. Combination of direct percussion and pressure with a little bit of a boogery spot there, and then just snapped in construction. You can convert it over to a scraper later, maybe, or whatever. It actually works better as a scraper when it's like this. You can scrape off thin shavings of wood with that edge and not with the other type of edge. Where is it? I don't know. But you get my meaning, right? This is better for a scraper. If I wanted to saw something with it, I would make a different edge. I would just hit it downward with direct percussion. That way I could saw with it. And it's easy to hold it like this instead of holding it like this. This doesn't saw much because there's not much surface area. The more surface area across the saw, the faster it works. All right. Yeah, just broken in construction. Broken in construction. Looks like all raw pieces, and this is a doodle. Just someone learning how to knap, or maybe trying to make one of those round scrapers, but it looks like a doodle to me. Just napping it to get some practice. Broken in construction, broken in construction, broken in construction. That's got a defect. That's a broken in construction. Yeah, broken in manufacture, in other words. Although they got close with this one. It looks like it's almost done, if not complete. Yeah, it looks complete actually, just broken, and maybe not broken in construction. Yeah, it could be that it snapped across the hafting area. It hafted up to that point and snapped across. It looks done, except it's slightly curved, so I don't know. Well, you know, a lot of real artifacts are slightly curved. What kind of knapping is that? It's stupid knapping when it's slightly curved. Yeah. This, I don't know, it's just, it broke, and that it just left a little point there after it broke. It looks like some internal defects and existing cracks, and I don't think this was used for anything in particular, although it has a bit of wear on it. I think that wear is due to being in the ground and not really used for anything. There's a little bit of wear on that, but it's a crumbly type of wear. Yeah. Broken in manufacture, although this is a straight base. This is not one of those Dismukes or Catans. It's something else. Straight base, triangular, archaic triangular. But these do look like they're Dismukes or Catans or Abasolo preforms that broke during manufacture. All of these are gravel cherts. I've seen this type of gravel in Junction, Texas, which is further north of the Dismuke area, but not much further. What is a Dismuke area? Right there. Junction, Texas is right on the north part of that black circle. So I have seen firsthand gravels that look like that. It's a gravel chert. It's a high grade, actually. This is a low grade. It looks like they had something going on here, a bigger style point, or adze blade. Now that would be a good size adze blade if it was all complete. Yeah, this has Cortex around it, so I don't think it was used as a scraper, although they saved it maybe to use later. Maybe. This is the one, I think, that gave me the most trouble trying to figure out what this is. Yeah, this is the one. I looked at this for a long time. What is it? What is it? What is it? And first off, you think it's a core for flakes. Yeah. They're using these little flakes coming off. It's a triangular core. What's the big deal? Why can't you figure it out? The flakes that come off of this material, I'm familiar with this material. They don't come off in big, long pieces. A lot of times that snaps in half. So you get two pieces there. You might get a whole piece there, but it's very thin down there. It's very thin on the end. These types of flakes are very thin. They'll snap. You try to use a flake, it'll snap. So this is not a core for flakes. These flakes that are coming off are very thin. Some of them are going to break up in half. They look like they are complete, but many of them are not. All right. And this top is not developed like a core would be developed. There's too many flakes. Too many lumpy spots. So as you're knocking off flakes, you have to deal with all these lumpy spots, which is difficult to do, and you're not going to get good flakes. Now, it could be that this is just a stupid core, but I think what this is, after all these years of looking at it, is just someone trying to learn how to remove the turtleback. That's what it is. Someone trying to learn how to remove that big turtleback. Many, many attempts at trying to do that, and then giving up. That's my final answer. They tried to figure out how to remove the turtleback, and they didn't do it right. But they kept trying, and you can see they scooped some of that out. They're thinking, maybe I could scoop out enough and take off a big flake, or try to crack it in half somehow by hitting it in a good area. Even though I'm way above center line, I might be able to hit an area somewhere and crack it in half. I think this is just someone learning how to remove turtlebacks. That's it. Yep. It's not a tool. It's not a core. It's a failed attempt at thinning it down. That's it. Final answer. Okay. Yeah, all these other pieces in here are just broken bits of gravel. Definitely, some of these you can tell are definitely human made, with percussion. Bulbs of percussion in some cases are visible, in some cases not. Trimming, you can see sometimes there's trimming, human made. But this broke because of existing defects, it looks like. Although it's relatively high grade. I've napped a lot of these materials myself because I've, scrounged up a bunch of Texas stuff. And I'm pretty sure a lot of this is high grade, but most of it would be stuff that I would normally heat treat and not try to nap raw. But these guys look like they were using direct percussion and keeping it raw, unless they heat treated after they napped them down into bifaces. You can heat treat it once you get it down to that size. You don't have to worry too much about it being too thick to nap. After you knock them down to size, you can heat treat them. Alright, what's we got? I think I already mentioned this one. Yeah, silicified sandstone. Because it has the sparklies in it. Yeah. Some of this silicified sandstone is easy to nap. Some of it is a royal pain. And I guess he included some other rocks from the campsite that I took some flakes off of. But this kind of stuff to me looks like pigment stone. Right? Stone that you get pigments from. Let's see. Come on. Pigment stones. I think this is what that is. But I don't know. Could be wrong. Could be just stuff that's normally within that area but not used for napping. I tried knocking off some stuff, but looks like I was not successful at, or didn't want to continue with it. It's very, very tough stuff. It's tough to get the pigment off of it also. So I don't think it was used for anything other than maybe grinding stones. You can definitely, with this smooth outside cobble skin, you can pound and grind seeds or whatever with it. Okay. I think I napped some of this stuff. Yeah, this is just, it looks like just local crud chert. Although this one here is a weird one. These are weird ones. See, they're translucent. They look easy to nap. I don't know where I got those from. But this stuff here, I don't know what to call it, but it's very rough. I don't know if it would respond to heat treatment, but it certainly won't turn into this stuff. And I don't know what this stuff is. It's a quartzite of some sort, or a petrified or silicified something or other. This is just high quality cobble chert. All right, so I think that's it. Yeah, the big deal with this particular batch that I did not want to deal with was the stuff I can't figure out. Yeah, I heat treated this 350 degrees and nothing happened. Okay, I think I was gonna heat treat the silicified sandstone as well. I don't think anything happens to it. But I haven't done extensive tests on heat treating silicified sandstone. I just don't have enough of it. I suppose I got that right there, but that's an artifact. I suppose it'd be best to use artifacts because that's what they used. We know that that's what they had in their campsite. Well, we don't know if they heat treated that or not. Alright, so the types of points that are in the collection are going to be the Desmuke, the Catan, and the Abasolo. Although the Abasolo is a totally different weirdness, has total different weirdness, especially when you look at it from the side view. Unfortunately, we can't see this from the side view. What that means is these base areas, instead of being nice and even, let's see. Hold on. The Abasolo, instead of being like this, base, side view, a lot of them are like this, with one flat original surface from a big flake and then napped this way by, napped with flakes across. Flakes, flakes, flakes on one side only, but this side over here is a natural flake scar from a big flake, just a original flake scar from a big flake on this side, and it's offset. Oftentimes you'll see it like this even, and then it'll go into the rest of the point. That's not a good representation because I got this in the way. Let's try it again. It'll be flat on one side, curved on the other, and then you'll see the rest of the point. And remember, this is a side view. Okay? So we can't see it from the side. It makes it weird. Sometimes they're like this, where this is original flake scar. Okay, that's the Abasolo. So I didn't see any of that in this collection. So to me, it looks like they're all Desmuke or Catan, but with some exceptions that are like archaic triangular. What type of archaic triangular? The Tortugas comes very close, but I think the Tortugas is very early. No, it's middle to late archaic, so it's probably around the same time period, and it is that same area. But they don't, the ones that we have in this collection don't have alternately beveled edges. Maybe some of these Tortugas don't have alternately beveled edges. Okay, but this type of basal thinning is present on at least one of the points in this collection. Yeah. So I would say, if anything, that triangular archaic would be Tortugas. Okay, so that's it. I wish I could. I was going to do a little note on all these, and when I first decided, when I first looked at it, my first instinct was to make little notes for each piece. And I think that's what bogged me down in the beginning, thinking, man, making notes for each piece, that would have been very hard to do. Not in terms of difficulty in actually doing it, but in time-wise. Yeah. All right. So there you go. I hope that was okay. If not, we can answer, or we can ask and answer more questions in the comment section. All right, hour and a half, nice good long video. There you go. That's it.